Hello everyone, I am Maureen Chigulosin and I would love to welcome you to my YouTube channel. This is MJ's Law, and if this is your first time here, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get updated each time I post a new video. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you come back to my videos. Thank you for all the comments, for the shares, for the likes. I really appreciate it. God bless you richly. So today we're going to look at the part 2 of the last video that I posted a few weeks back. If you haven't already watched that video, please go back and do so, because that will give you a foundation or a basis of what we're discussing here today. And to discuss that with me, I have Brother Timothy here. For those that have been watching my video, you already know Brother Timothy. Brother Tim, can you say hi to our viewers?
Hi, viewers.
Okay. So we are going to discuss the Father, Son, Judge, and Adversary. A few people messaged me saying that the Father did the right thing by executing justice and ensuring that the Son got the just penalty that he deserved. So, Bertine, you watched the video, right?
I did.
And I've also given you a brief of what the idea is all about. So now we're going to look at that video and use that to explain God's righteous judgment.
Okay.
Yes, that is what we're going to do. So sit tight, buckle up take your Bible. I have mine here. A pen, a paper, a book, or whatsoever, a journal, whatsoever you can get to write down points. So, Bertine, do you have anything to say to the viewers before we go into our topic for today?
Okay. So, first off, let's have a basic of the basic, because we are going to be having basics on, life, the Christian life in particular. God as a sovereign ruler over all flesh. Now, you should know that this is a basic Christian conversation we are having here today. So we're going to have some foundations. That's why I said basic of the basic. This is the first one. And we're going to have a few basics before we jump right into the topic. Yeah. So let's start with the very first one. Basic number one. God. Mind you, we're talking about God as a sovereign ruler over all flesh, not just over Christians. Firstly, God is God, independent on his creatures. He is God. You know, the way Pastor Nathaniel Bassi will say, he is God all by himself. That's who actually he is. He is self-existent. God is the only one that has aseity. That means he exists all by himself. His existence is independent on anything he created. He is God all by himself. He is God even before creation, and he will always be God. You know, let's look at Psalm 90 verse 3. Let's engage the scriptures. Psalm chapter 90 verse 3. Psalm 90 verse 3. Psalm 90
verse 3.
Yes.
Thou turnest man to destruction and sayest, return ye children of men.
Okay, let's take verse 2 and see.
Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hadst formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting thou art God.
From everlasting to everlasting, that means from eternity backwards, that is even before creation of the world, before creation of anything at all. God, I will not say God was God, no. God is God. Even before creation. Remember when Jesus met the Pharisees and then they said, You think you are a young man and you're saying you are before Abraham. He said, before Abraham was, I am. That is, God is an ever present. He's not a past. He's not a future. He is always in the present. He is ever present. That's why I will not say he was God. No, he is God. So God, one, God is God, independent on his creatures. His creatures have nothing to do to make him God. He's God all by himself. He carries aseity. That means he exists by himself. He's influenced by himself. He is the only one that has that attribute, the aseity. He exists by himself. He's influenced by himself. Point number two, the basic number two actually, is that we as creatures all emanate from God. All of us, all sentient beings emanate from God. Now let's look at Acts 17. Acts chapter 17, 28. Acts 17, 28.
17.
28. Acts 17, 28.
28. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. Okay, so it was a concept believed in those days that all sentient beings are offsprings of God. Every being in the world, they are all offsprings of God. Every sentient being is an offspring of God. So that's to show that we all actually emanated from God. God is not just a God of Christians, no. Let's look at another verse. Let's engage the scriptures. Jeremiah 32, verse 27. Let's see. And when I say God, I mean Jesus. Jeremiah
32, 27.
32, 27. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me?
Now, this is an assertion. God says, I am the God of all flesh. You're going to have to believe this. This is, arguably the truth. Whether we have our own perceptions or not, whether we believe God exists or not, whether we have other, ideas of who God is, a fabricum idolarium, like we have our own concept of God, but this is what God says. I am the God of all flesh. Every flesh under the heavens, I am their God. So as Acts 17:28 says, we all are offsprings of God. So we emanated from God. Every one of us came from God. And here he asserts to us that he is the God of all flesh. Not just some, not just Christians. No, he's the God of every living thing. Point number three actually has to correlate to point number two. As I was saying that we emanated from God, you look at the story of Genesis, man's creation. The Bible says in the beginning, he was made out of dust, and there he lay lifeless, couldn't do anything until God had to breathe into his nostrils the breath of life. And when that happened, man became a living soul. So what the essence of man actually is that being that came from God, that breath of life that came from God. So actually man emanated from God. His essence. The way Jesus will now say in John 6:63, he said, it is the spirit that gives life. The flesh counts for nothing. So this is actually, it's just a covering. It's Paul will call it a house. This is not the reality. The reality is that essence, that breath that God, blew into the nostrils of man, and it became a living being. So actually, you see that man emanated from God. His reality is from God. That is who he is. His reality is from God. That's why I think it was John Calvin that said, he said, every human being has a sense of divinity, a sensus divinitatis. Every human being has that sense innate within them, because that's where we came from. We came from God. And the third basic is that, actually, to not know God is to not know yourself. These are basics. To not know God is to not know yourself. And it's true. Because to know God is like we are getting to know ourselves because He is our source. We came from Him. It is His definition of us that because He knew us before we even got a perception of ourselves. Because we came from Him. We came from Him as God. So to know God is to know oneself. To not know God is to be confused in this world. You are just confused no matter what you think. Bible says, has God not made foolish the wisdom of this world? So no matter what we think we know, subjectivism, relativism, all the visms you can say, without God, man is just lost. Because man's place, his residence is God. Man's source is God. Man emanates from God. So it is only God's definition. See, we have nowhere else. We actually have nowhere else. It's just God. And when people talk about God, and as I said earlier, I'm talking about Jesus, you think people are just being fanatics, but no. This is a reality. This is the truth. That's why Jesus will say, I am the way, the truth. That word truth there doesn't mean to have something that you have to use to debunk a lie. Truth means the reality. That is what He is. Actually the reality. He is the reality. So even when it comes to us also, we can only have our reality. The truth about us, the reality about us as humans, can only be known in Jesus. I repeat it again. This is not dogma. This is not fanaticism. This is truth. Nobody is trying to shove Christianity in your face. No. Nobody is trying to shove Jesus in your face. This is a truth. I found it to be really, this is a truth that I found to be really peaceful. Getting to know the Lord Jesus with a little knowledge, and it has so much helped me, giving me so much peace. So this is the same thing I say to people. Without, when you lack the knowledge of God in this world, you are lost. No matter what you know, no matter what you think, no matter your profession, what you think you have, whether you're a professor, you're a doctor, you're this. Ask men like Leo Tolstoy, with all the achievement he had, ask one question that he ever asked himself that made him, he could never find the answer. With all the wisdom of the world he had, he only found this answer in peasant Christians in Russia. He could never have found that by himself. He engaged in a lot of things because he was trying to discover himself, but he couldn't. Read books, did a lot of things, did a lot of adventures, but he never came to the reality of himself. See, Jesus is the reality of humanity. That's who actually He is. You miss Him, you are lost. We miss Him, we are lost. So as I said, a man that doesn't know God doesn't know himself. One day I had a discussion with an MD, and he said something to me. I took time to think about that word. He said, the energy we actually give to God without knowing is the energy we give to ourselves. That's true. He said, a man that cannot be useful to God cannot be useful to himself. That word really struck me, because most times we find ourselves in much ado about actually nothing. I have this, I have to do this, I have to put this in place. He said, a man that cannot be useful to God cannot be useful to himself, and that's true. A man that doesn't love God actually doesn't love himself. It doesn't matter. You may want to think that loving yourself means giving yourself what you want. But that's wrong. You should know that the addict is also giving himself what he wants. The man, the man that is, addicted to drugs, he considers that love, giving himself what he wants. Meanwhile, he's poisoning himself. You even say, once I heard Pastor Chris say something, and I think it's true. He said, even the man that commits suicide is giving himself what he wants. He's just tired of all the pain. It's like self-love, but he commits suicide. So all of those things actually don't count outside of God. Let's look at what Proverbs 8:36 says. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 36.
Proverbs 8:36. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.
Simple. He that sinneth against me, that means the word actually sin, the Greek word hamartia, means to miss the point. So actually, anyone that misses me, anyone that doesn't have me in their life, a consciousness of me in their life, is doing a wrong to himself. Like, actually, you are not doing God a wrong. No, you are not hurting God by rejecting him. The only person that will end up being hurt is you, because we've established earlier that God is God, independent on you. He has aseity. He is not dependent on his creatures. No, he doesn't. So, as he said, he that misses me or he that sins against me wrongs his own self, and he that hates me loves it. So, having indifference towards God actually shows, the energy you carry towards yourself, the energy you have towards yourself, whatever energy you're showing to God. So, indirectly, or the opposite of that statement would be, he that loves me loves life, which is himself. We've had these establishments. So, one, God is God, independent on his creatures. Two, he's God of all flesh. Three, knowing God is getting to know ourselves. The energy we give towards God is the energy we give ourselves. And the last point we're going to make, point number 4, basic, is God knows our thoughts towards him. All of this, you in the world today, you see a lot of people, when you try to tell them about Jesus, you see the anger in their faces. They just don't want to know. Some actually, when you read Romans, and Paul was talking about, you also find it in 2 Timothy chapter 3, where Paul was talking about, there are some who are actually God haters. You wouldn't imagine, but it is actually true. They're just people who just hate God for reasons best known to them, or for their, misconceptions. That's how we call it. It's a misconception. It's a misunderstanding of who God is. They just hate him at all. But you see, hating God, as earlier we've stated in Proverbs 8:36, that say, he that hates me loves it. Hating God, actually, it is foolish. Hating God is foolish. Psalm 94 verse 11 says, the Lord knows the thought of people. He knows the thought of men. And he knows that it is worthless. Your thought of hating God, your thought of, rejection of God, and so on and so forth, ends up to hurt only you. You hating God, I'm saying this to people who have had a misconception there, especially atheists. It goes there to you. It's a misconception. You hating God has nothing on God. It just has everything on you, because with or without you, God is God. And then, he can just, we have to thank the fact that God is actually a good God, and is patient, because he can just wake up. If God even actually thinks of you being dead, you are dead. Just like that, you are gone. So, the same way he says in Psalm 2, he said, why do the nations rage and the kings imagine vain things? The rulers gather themselves against the Lord, against his anointed. But he said, he that sitteth in heaven laughs. He doesn't. He sees them like just children throwing, tantrums here and there. They don't know what they're doing. So we said those basics. I repeat the basics. One, God is God, independent on us. Two, what's it? We all emanated from God. The third one is knowing God is actually knowing ourselves. The energy we put in God is the energy we put towards ourselves. The final one is like hating God actually harms only you. The thoughts that you have towards God that are, hostile, it's actually futile. It's not useful at all. It has nothing to harm God. It harms only you. So with this being said, we look at the point now where, God, if there is one point I think we need to focus on, I think, the Reformation, in their quest to actually revive what they thought was a dying point of the church, or what was a dying concept in the church, the point of God's sovereignty. In their quest to actually revive it, they've written a lot of things, a lot of books, a lot of materials that will help. And that's true. The point that God is sovereign, that God is the ruler of all creation. He actually rules, and then he reigns. Not just that he rules and he reigns. The fact that God has right over his creation. Now, this is what it means. That God is never wrong. God is actually never wrong. The fact that he can do anything he wants, and then he is right. Somebody said something. He said, the way you have, Christmas is coming, you have your Christmas goat. You just take one like that, slaughter, and everybody eats at home. Nobody is saying, what did you do? You did wrong. No, because that is yours. Nobody is taking you to court because you slew your Christmas goat. So we let's have that point also, that God is never wrong. No matter what he does, you that is sitting in judgment of him, you are the one that is foolish. Because we are, his creation, we are his creatures. Psalm 100 verse 3 says, you made us, we did not make ourselves. We are the sheep of your pasture. We are your creatures. So whatever God chooses to do to us, he's right. He's not wrong. 2, God is the judge of all the earth. And he is just. Now we look at the point of story. Those were just basics. We look at the point of the story now where the father